Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range to show you a modification for your Glock handgun that's going to make it a much better weapon. And that is this barrel system. Well, sort of. This barrel system is part of another system that we want to show you today that's actually a pretty cool modification for the Glock series of handguns. So we're going to talk about that kit and do a little bit of shooting with it. But first, I just wanted to shoot this thing with this crazy barrel in it because it's kind of fun. Now you may notice that the empties are just barely coming out of the ejection port. That's because the action of the gun's being delayed as it opens because of the weight of the barrel. We'll talk more about that in the video. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. First of all, I want to invite all of you to swing by and check out Second Legacy. I'll put a link down below. I've partnered up with Braden from Langley Outdoors Academy, and we're bringing you Second Amendment news and things like that, which I think you'll find very interesting. So please swing by and check out Second Legacy. Again, a link down below. All right, with that being said, let's talk about the Glock series of handguns. Very popular handguns for a reason. They're generally affordable, they're very utilitarian, very reliable, and they've been adopted around the world by law enforcement and police agencies, and in the United States, a lot of civilian carry. People actually use the Glock, specifically the Glock 19 or some variation thereof. So it's a very popular handgun, so it only stands to reason that people would make accessories for the gun. And believe me, they do. There are a lot of companies that make a very good living making accessories for the Glock. But one of the more interesting ones I've seen recently on social media is a bullpup chassis that converts this handgun into a rifle. Now keep in mind, under current U.S. law, it is perfectly legal to take a handgun and turn it into a rifle. The handgun is the more regulated of the two. Long guns have federal age restrictions that are less than handguns. Handguns 21, long guns 18 years old. So it's illegal to buy a rifle and chop it down to a handgun. But going the other way, handgun to a rifle, the feds, at least at this point, don't seem to care. So that's what makes a kit like this possible. Now, what you don't want to do is buy this kit. Don't install the 16-inch barrel. Put it in the chassis, because now the feds will have reason to put you in prison for 10 years and fine you $250,000. They don't take kindly to people doing that. Thank you to the 1934 NFA for that silly piece of legislation. So anyway, to convert this into a bullpup, it's really simple. The bullpup kit is called the Apex GFC. It's made by Meta Tactical, and this is it. It comes in different colors: green, black, flat, dark earth, and I'm a big flat dark earth fan, so this is the one that I chose. And it's very simple to convert this gun to work in this chassis, install it, and so it doesn't take a whole lot of effort or time or tools. To accomplish that, I'm going to make sure the weapon's empty, and then I'm going to point it safe direction, drop the striker, take it apart like you normally would any Glock series of handguns. I'm going to take my recoil spring out and barrel. Now keep in mind, they make this for a number of different Glock handguns, and you'll need to tell them if you want a Glock 17, Glock 19, whatever, because the dimensions of the guns are slightly different. Therefore, the chassis has to be slightly different. This is a 16-inch barrel that comes with the kit for $4.99. On the end, it's threaded. I've taken the thread protector off. It needs to come off before you can put it into the slide of the gun. Slide that in. Take your recoil spring, put it back on. So not only do we have a silly law mandating 16-inch barrels in rifles, but we also have an overall length requirement. This bullpup kit meets all those federal regulations. Then we're going to put the slide back onto the frame of the gun. Now, balance there for me, please. I'm going to take my chassis system. We'll go over the features of the chassis here in a moment, but to ready it for shooting, I'm going to pop out this pin. So I'm going to push this out. It's a plastic pin that is captive. All right, just don't pull on it super hard. Take it out till it stops. Then there's a button on the other side. I'm going to push on that button and hinge the rear of the system open. Now I can take my pistol, slide it into the chassis, push it all the way forward, close this. Now it is a rifle. On the end, you can either put leave the standard thread protector on there. This is not a 1/2x28 thread. This is a more coarse thread, and we'll talk about that here when we talk about the features of the gun. But you can take the thread protector off. They sell a muzzle device, which I'm screwing on right now, that just kind of finishes out the look of the gun. So there you have it. Now all you have to do is push your pin across. This pin is going through the trigger guard. It's contacting the trigger, and now it is ready to shoot. So now let's take a look at some of the features of this particular gun, and then do some shooting with it and talk about how it shoots and if I think it's worth the investment of right around 500 bucks. The features of this chassis system are as follows. We'll start off back here on the rear end and we'll move our way to the forward part of the firearm. Back here, this is your butt plate. You can see that it's textured, not really soft, it's just polymer. And then you have these little brackets here on the side. That's because this length of pull is adjustable. You have a lever inside of the stock right here. If you pinch that lever, you can slide this stock to one of its several length positions. Now, when it's fully collapsed, if we look over here on the left-hand side, you'll notice it's covering the slide, stop, slide release. If I move that out 2 clicks, it now exposes it. If I go even further out, it just exposes that opening even more. I'm a tall guy, so I usually run it all the way out. It's very rigid. It doesn't flop around a whole lot, which is nice. All right, and then you'll notice you have access to your slide, stop, slide release over here. Here's the trigger pin that we talked about. Magazine goes in right here. This is the release that opens up the rear of the action. You'll notice that we have screws and nuts holding the entire 2 halves of the gun together, very reminiscent of like a Kel-Tec product. Not a problem using Loctite. It's not going to come loose. Then as we move forward, this is our ejection port. This is a port buffer. Yes, if you keep your face behind this, shooting it left-handed should not be a problem. Over here, we have a mag release. This is for an ambi release, should you have one on the right-hand side of the gun. This gun does not have it, so this mag release on the left-hand side is what releases the magazine. So it's set up for ambi if you want to run it from the other side. Trigger pin, 1913 rail across the top. Here's the pistol grip. It's a polymer trigger with linkage coming back here that connects to this trigger pin, and we'll do a test of the trigger here momentarily. Coming forward, this is an accessory that they offer. There's several accessories that Meta Tactical offers for the chassis system, this being one. You have M-lock at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions, and you can put 1913 rails on there. This is an accessory, 1913 rail accessory, that I've attached this forward grip / additional mag well. Now you'll see it kind of textured back here. It's made to be ran up against the trigger guard, but you can slide it forward if you want to use it as a more conventional vertical grip. That's up to you. I've chose to put it all the way back up against here, and it seems to shoulder really nicely. On the other side, another accessory from Meta Tactical is this little thumb rest, and so it makes it very natural. This charging handle right here is non-reciprocating, so you don't have to worry about getting whacked when you fire it. Talking about the charging handle, you'll notice you have 2 protrusions on either side of the gun that allow you to easily operate the action. Back here we have a cross block safety that just blocks the function of the trigger when the safety is on. And coming back out here, there's our muzzle end. So that's pretty much all the features. Again, this kit, as you see it here, is right around $499. And yeah, it's very polymer, very lightweight. We'll get a weight here for you, and I'll throw it up on the screen. But it doesn't appear to be loose, cheap feeling anyway, but it does feel super lightweight, which is kind of nice. So very, very interesting. Let's do some shooting with it. Let's see how well it shoots. Talk about the reliability, at least, you know, the 300 or 400 rounds we're going to shoot this afternoon, and have some fun with the gun, because fun it is, because I love bullpups, and you should too. Why didn't you guys say something? I didn't talk about the suppressor. Jeez, you guys aren't helping me over here. All right, let's talk about the suppressor. So first I'm going to take the gun out of the chassis because I want to talk about the Browning action. So I'm going to open the chassis up. Now I can take the gun out even with the muzzle device on from the chassis. Browning actions, that's what the Glock is based on. When the gun cycles, you'll notice the barrel kind of tilts down. See how it tilts down? That's how it unlocks. That's the delay mechanism, allowing the bullet to get far enough down the barrel or out of the barrel before the breech opens up and pressures are safe for it to open up so it doesn't blow up in your face. So this Browning action, that delay system, also can be inhibited by additional weight on the end of the barrel. So as we opened up the beginning of the video with, we talked about how this gun was just barely limping the sprint cases out of the ejection port. That's because this added weight of the barrel is retarding the action of the Browning system that the Glock employs. So when it comes to putting a suppressor on the end of that, if you run a suppressor on a handgun with a Browning type action, you'll be familiar with something called a Nielsen device or a booster. What does the booster do? Well, the booster allows gas to come into the suppressor. It then pushes against a spring, which then floats the handgun, or floats the suppressor on the end of the barrel of the handgun, making it momentarily weightless, so the action of the gun can cycle at regular velocity before the gas leaves the suppressor, and then that becomes dead weight on the end of the barrel. If that booster were not there, there'd be too much weight on the end of the barrel, and the gun simply wouldn't cycle. So by putting a 16-inch barrel on here, even a suppressor with a booster, chances are the reliability of the handgun would either be non-existent or it would have the occasional failure to function. So that's why we don't have a 1/2x28 thread on the end of the barrel. Put her back together. Really simple to do. And she's ready to go. All right, the moment of truth. Let's do some shooting with the Apex Tactical Bullpup chassis for the Glock 19. I'm going to take a magazine, insert it into the action of the gun. You can use any length magazine in the chassis system. It doesn't matter. You can use the Happy Sticks, you can use flush fit, whatever you want. I chose the Glock 19 because it's a little bit shorter, doesn't stick out the bottom. And yeah, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and charge her up. Make sure that safety's off, and then do a little shooting. All right, drop the magazine out. I'm just going to strip it out. I'm going to grab another magazine from up front, drop that slide, and I'm just going to show you that the gun is perfectly safe to shoot left-handed. So there you go. Today we're shooting some Federal 124 grain 9mm. I want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. Been shooting Federal ammunition my entire life. Absolutely love the stuff. Love the folks over at Federal. Great people, great product. So please check them out. All right. So this is a Glock 19 magazine. Put it in there. And I'm going to go ahead and just use the slide stop slide release. Drop that mag out. I'm going to grab my Glock 17 magazine and stick that in there. Woohoo! Goes by way too fast. Yeah, now we're talking. Very satisfying. Does not lock open with that particular magazine. And then the good old Happy Stick. Now you can put the Happy Stick up here and it looks a little bit goofy. But back here, where it belongs, it doesn't look so goofy. Oh no! Clicketh no bang. All right, don't know what the clicketh no bang was. Ooh. That's a Glock problem. It had nothing to do with the chassis. All right, so you know what we can do? Let's stick that in there, give it whack too. Yeah, bad round. Not a Glock problem, bad round. Oh no, Federal, I'm sorry. Anyway, so, yeah, very cool. Now, some oddities. You notice with the slide lock to the rear, you're probably going to see the barrel just flopping around. It'll do that because of the Browning action in the 16-inch barrel. Even when it's in battery, you're going to have a little bit of movement here in the end of the barrel. So accuracy. At 50 yards, I can keep it on a man-sized target. At 100 yards, maybe 3/4 of the rounds will hit. So it's not an extremely precise instrument, but for CQB distances, say self-defense around the house, truck gun, things like that, you could certainly use it if you felt so inclined. This kind of falls into the category, in my opinion, of range toys, fun guns to shoot. perfectly fine to have guns that are just fun to shoot. Not everything has to serve a practical or tactical purpose. You can have fun with your guns, and bullpups I find to be very fun to shoot. And this is no different. So a lot of fun, very interesting. Seems that the quality is good for a completely polymer kit with minimal metal parts, but again, it keeps that weight down. Pretty neat. One thing I did notice about the chassis system is it doesn't have any facilities for a QD sling mount. If you wanted to put a sling on it, you're gonna have to use a strap sling, maybe use some paracord or something like that to fashion one. So if I could change one thing, it would be nice to mold in and include some sling mounts for the chassis system. So the weight of the thing is right around 5 pounds, and that's with the optic on it. So it's just a little over 5 pounds. Not too shabby. The trigger pull, well, the weight of the trigger pull is going to depend on your gun. Do you have an aftermarket trigger in it? Well, then it could be lighter. This is a factory trigger, so it's a little heavier. In terms of the slop in the trigger, so when I pull the trigger, right there, I can take up. It gives a hard stop like a 2-stage trigger. I can feel it engaging the Glock's trigger, push past it, and it fires. So it actually has a pretty decent trigger in it. Not too bad. Now, the negatives. The one thing that we noticed, we didn't have any reliability issues. We had a bad round, we thought, but then we put that bad round after 2 attempts in this particular Glock pistol, not the chassis fault, and it didn't fire it twice. We put it into Shadow Systems, and it did fire. So it wasn't a bad round. The Glock on this just had a light primer strike with that particular round. The other thing that we noticed, we had no reliability issues with this gun all afternoon. However, when we put it on slow motion because we wanted to see the operation of the gun, we noticed some spent cases kind of hanging out in the ejection port. None of them fell into the ejection port of the gun itself, but they just kind of bounced around on top and then fell out. So in theory, it could cause a malfunction, although we've never experienced that malfunction, but it was pretty interesting to see in slow motion. With all that being said, I still stand by my assertion. This is a fun gun to shoot. It doesn't necessarily, again, have to be practical or tactical to be fun to shoot, and we are allowed to have fun with our firearms, and this thing for me is quite a bit of fun. It's fun just to be able to stick a Glock in there, do some shooting with it, and then without tools, take it right back apart if I so desire. I have plenty of Glocks sitting around. I've collected them over the years, so throwing one in a chassis and leaving it there isn't that big of a deal. If you enjoyed today's video, guys, please comment down below, like, share, and subscribe. Also, consider becoming part of our Patreon family so we can continue to bring you videos like this one. There is a link in the video description down below. Also, right underneath the video player you're watching right now, you have a thanks button and a join button. And click either one of those buttons and help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Last but not least, please swing by and check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 15 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.